Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's Agents in Action. Um, from, I, from idea to intelligent agent, a hackathon for entrepreneurs and ready to scale. So today I have with me Alexander DeRitter, who's our CTO and founder of SmythOS, and I have Brian Rogers, who is our strategic advisor here at SmythOS. And if I have a slide with a little bit more of their information on it, but I want them to tell you a little bit about themselves and what brought them to this moment in time today. And then we'll get started just talking some casual conversation about what it's like to be an entrepreneur and what it's like to use SmythOS to help take those ideas into production ready environment. So with that, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. And Alexander, if you want to tackle that first question, like who are you and what brought you to this moment today?
Well, I'm the co-founder of SmythOS, along with Michael Umansky, who leads operations in the company, and Gary Heyman, who leads sales initiatives in the company. We've been working together for 12 years in several startups. SmythOS has had a long journey to get to this point. We started out in the last company that we exited from, and it was spun out. At the time, it was Ink for All, and an SEO AI optimization tool for content. ChatGPT made it hard for that business to continue to be successful. And that was not because the technology stopped working. It was just because OpenAI had these like restrictions on how much content you can put out at a time. Very strict. It was a time you could only put like 1 or 2 paragraphs out at a time. And if you did anything more, you could lose your API key. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, they launched their own version of this with no restrictions. And obviously, everybody jumps on their product. So after that, the restrictions were loosened, but people choose convenience and ease of use. So then SmythOS was a pivot, and we pivoted from that product into SmythOS. The journey was it was kind of step by step. We started out in the previous iteration, Ink for All. We started deploying recipes, and recipes were like things for marketing you would do again and again and again. Say like reapply this prompt, kind of like a prompt library with multiple steps. And then function calling became possible in models. And when you had multiple steps and recipes, and you could call APIs and do function calling, then we're like, well, that's interesting. And there was one last kind of piece of the puzzle that happened. OpenAI announced a ChatGPT store, and we said, what if we took our Ink for All technology and like put it in a plugin called SEO app? And what happened was like in 2 days, 50,000 people signed up, and we're like, okay, well, the AI is going to change SaaS. But moreover, we said, well, when that does, every business in the world is going to have to figure out how to do this agent stuff. And it wasn't easy, from authentication to security to hosting to building the agent, to making sure it does what it's supposed to do, debugging, observing. None of this was easy. And a lot of that was done with code. So that's when the picture was complete. Recipes, function calling, security, the whole thing. We said, okay, it's that next thing. It's agents, and that was spring of 2023. Since then, we've built a very robust product that really lets anyone create agents wherever you are. And this is an entrepreneur audience. We can meet you where you are.
Brian, what about you? What's your story around how you got to be here and sort of a little bit about your background? We'll go into more of it throughout the webinar, but just a highlight of who you are and
Yeah,
how you got here today.
no, absolutely. So Like Alexander, I am an entrepreneur for most of my career. I've dabbled a little bit in corporate America, but I decided that I really wanted to be more an entrepreneur. But through my journey, I actually started out as uh, running my first applications when I was 10 years old. I've been a techie since I was very young. But as my career evolved, I started getting pretty deeply involved in data science and then machine learning and now the generative AI space. And what led me to SmythOS was I learned a SmythOS a couple of years ago when they were just kind of getting started, and I reached out to the founders and said, "I have got to be part of you guys because the solution that SmythOS had was very different than other players out there." And I was also at the time doing lecturing on AI at Columbia University as well. So I was really deep into the AI machine learning space, and I had also had just started a company that was for machine learning and data scientists for leasing out um, servers for jobs. So I really had a good grasp on AI, and I saw a lot of genius in SmythOS. And so I was like, bugged them and bugged them and bugged them. And finally, they said, Brian, why don't you come in and help us out? So that's really kind of what led me to SmythOS. But throughout my career, like Alexander, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started multiple companies, and I think later we're going to jump in a little bit how Alexander and I both got into this and what actually made us want to be entrepreneurs in the first place. But that's basically in a nutshell who I am. So, Amber.
Welcome. So again, welcome both of you. Thank you for being here today, for letting me twist your arm a little bit to talk about this. Because the goal today is really to inspire folks, whether you're on the call live today, whether you're watching on the live stream, or whether you're watching this as a recording later. We want to inspire you to take your next big idea and from that spark to your startup. And we want to show you, if we give you the opportunity to participate in a hackathon, where that journey might where that journey might take you. And as Alexander's mentioned, he talked about how he got here and why SmythOS exists, and you've talked about how you got here today as well. But Alexander, does that why that originally started the driving purpose for SmythOS, does that still guide your mission today, or has it changed a little bit?
There was in the previous iteration in the writing platform, there were people that we would hire and say, it's your job to use this tool to create content. And we did crazy things like in 10 weeks time from 0 to 1 million visitors a month in SEO. Crazy things. But when we told them it's your job to do this, they used it and it was great. And then we had this other company that was full of SEO consultants and so forth, and we did not mandate them, you have to use this product. And we always felt like if the product is good enough where they can't live without it, they will use it on their own. So we didn't want to force them to do it. And I don't think we ever quite got there on the previous startup before we pivoted. But what I will say about SmythOS now is that there is no one in the company from the engineers who would ever consider building their agents in any other technology. And I think that is a very, very different result than that we had several years ago before we pivoted. So when your question is like, has that mission changed? I think things have been more clear. In 2023, we understood that there would be brand agents and process agents and personal agents. I remember speaking in a conference in May 2023, talking about how the internet was going to change as a result of it. But what was not clear yet is the Internet of Agents and how they're all going to work together seamlessly. That came into focus after MCP and the Linux Foundation and agent-to-agent protocol. That vision got expanded and it even got more exciting. So the opportunities for automation with SmythOS are even larger than they were when we started. The other area where it has evolved, I think, is that when we started out, we really had a SaaS mindset. And today we also realize that some of the most exciting use cases for the Internet of Agents and SmythOS is also on device and local hardware and Internet of Things and everything working together. Those are things that I did not see yet in 2023 that have expanded. But what has remained the same since then is more people than ever start realizing that we are going to not need one agent per business, but hundreds of agents per business. And if that is true, the next 5 years, we will see the next 800 million agents come online. And building an agent is not really the problem. The problem is much larger than that. It is, how do you manage a fleet of agents? How do you get them to work together? How do they get maintained and updated, and how do they stay secure? Yes, today it's like, how do I get one agent online? But SmythOS is thinking about the next stage already.
And that sort of leads me into my next point, because I've said it, you've said it, we hear everybody say that SmythOS is to AI agents what the Linux kernel and Linux was to like the server revolution. And that's a really powerful analogy in the open source space. And so for those hearing about what an agentic OS is, we say we're the operating system for agentic AI, and they're just now hearing agentic OS, to enter entrepreneurs and founders who might just be hearing it for the first time. How do you explain that? How do you dive a little bit deeper into that? Because agent can be a little bit abstract. Operating systems people get for your what's on your computer today, but maybe they're not thinking about that agentic ecosystem and that management of hundreds of agents, thousands of agents. And so, can you, either one of you, talk a little bit more about this agentic OS and what the opportunity we present and that new era that you're talking about, Alexander, that opportunity that SmythOS presents to entrepreneurs in this agentic ecosystem?
Let's do this. I'll say some things, and then Brian, maybe you can answer the part regarding what opportunity it presents to entrepreneurs. So I'll take the first part of your question, Amber. What is it? What is an OS? Why is there an OS? And then Brian can talk about the entrepreneurial relevance of that. There's a lot of stuff that happens on your computer that you don't have to think about when you're running apps or programs. The networking, the security, the encryption, the hardware support, the databases, the programming languages, all of that stuff, right? When it comes to agents, we're dealing with a lot. Memory, orchestration, security, interoperability, and all the things I said earlier. When you create an agent, you shouldn't have to worry about any of that. It should just work. And if your phone runs apps and your computer runs programs, SmythOS runs agents. It's that simple. And when you have an operating system, you have a common foundation that all your agents can rely on, a common security architecture, a common memory infrastructure, a common interoperability infrastructure. And your agents don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. And that's really the problem if you're going to approach this with like code and stuff. It's like, we spent 2.5 years of building that foundation, so you can build on the shoulders of this foundation. Don't worry about all the underlying hyper complex technical stuff. And the reason why we call it the Linux for AI agents is because the architecture itself is modeled after the way the Linux kernel is architected. We have modules and subsystems and drivers, and extending SmythOS is really easy. If you want to work with something that it doesn't support, you can add a driver in as little as 30 minutes, and then ever after, the operating system will support that. It's also like Linux in that it is open source, not some kind of like by attribution or restricted for commercial use. It's truly open source. MIT license. It's really do whatever you want. Hopefully contribute and start. But it is very important because, you know, if you're an entrepreneur, but you have to worry about running a trash can company and a road repair company and an electricity delivery company, just so you have basic and food, you have to worry about all those things. You would never have time to be an entrepreneur, right? And so what we are doing is we're providing you all that infrastructure, all the plumbing, so that you can just focus on your business. Brian?
So, Alexander, when you talk about this operating system of agents, it brings back me to about 8 years ago, when IoT was just coming around, and there was a lot of hype around IoT, the connected Internet of Things. One of the things that I did was I headed up product for a company out in Silicon Valley that was developing a platform that allowed you to establish policy on IoT devices. And when I listen to Alexander talk about where SmythOS is going right now and how you have the Internet of Agents, and it's very similar to this IoT world that I was part of in the very beginning. But the thing that I think is so interesting about SmythOS compared to back then was we were building static policies on these IoT devices. So a policy like a refrigerator only should have connections to certain data that's relating to food in the refrigerator and nothing else. Or, and this is a real story, a fish tank in Las Vegas should only be for the environment inside the aquarium for fish. And a good example of what happened back then with Las Vegas, there was actually a big breach in one of the casinos. A hacker was able to tunnel in through a fish tank and was able to attack the casino through the fish tank. But the point here is this was all static. And what Alexander talks about is a thinking, a reasoning, a self-aware network of agents that you don't have to think through every single individual policy on these connected devices. You have agents, part of this operating system, that understand what a refrigerator is, understands what an aquarium is. So, for me, it's really interesting to see how we're starting to evolve and what SmythOS has done. And for me, one thing that I would like to echo, what Alexander said earlier, was about pivoting. When you're starting businesses, you're being an entrepreneur, and you're taking this very risky journey, because it's not easy. You have to pivot. You have to be a constant learner and constantly think about what's ahead of you in the future and make pivots quickly before the idea that you're working on before either dies or you lose the opportunity of new ideas to come. So, this is, when I listen to Alexander talk about his past companies and where they've evolved, that perhaps for me would probably be the most important thing, is to be able to understand how to pivot and when to pivot with your businesses. And this is, so SmythOS wasn't just created in one day. This was an evolution of many ideas that Alexander had throughout his career of starting businesses. And it just happens now that SmythOS is the pinnacle of a lot of the ideas that he's been working on for several years. And for me personally, this is the same thing. I've started multiple companies, and a lot of the companies were starting out with ideas and pivoting until I got to what I really wanted in my company.
Well, speaking of ideas, and I think I was expressing this to several folks over the last week. I never had the thought of like, I can create something. I have this idea. How do I turn it into a business? And now, after being involved in SmythOS, like I'm thinking, I can do this. Like I had these ideas. And so a lot of entrepreneurs have great ideas, but maybe they don't have deep technical teams, which, Alexander alluded to earlier. We've at SmythOS, we've taken the need for that out. And so you can have this ideation phase, and then you can have this, you're preparing it and you're putting it into action, and then you have it into production. You have your, planning into production. And so I think, one of the things that you both have touched on is that SmythOS can lower that barrier to entry, lower the barrier to creating something super meaningful. And you've both touched on it. And hearing you both, I'm thinking, and I even have ideas now as we're talking through this, and I hope that those who are watching are having their ideas and their aha moments. And speaking of that, how we lower the entry, the barrier to entry, from taking an idea into a production ready system, hackathons can be a great accelerator. And I think it's great that a lot of these conferences and stuff out there today, they're all having hackathons around something. Some vendor who's sponsoring the event sponsors a hackathon around an idea. And so if hackathons are like accelerators, and we can compress that innovation period to a weekend or even a week, but the challenge is always kind of like, what happens after that? Like, what happens after you upload your new agent into SmythForge, for example? Now, what happens after that? So how are we going to help teams join a hackathon and then help them take their new agent, their new idea, and start it to production? Because we've seen some really great community built projects. So a couple questions here in two-part. You guys can divide it up however you'd like. How are we going to help teams? One, get them into the hackathons, and then two, what happens after they create their agent? And then, has there been, Alexander, I think this next question is for you. This one, I really want to hear your answer. We've seen some great community build projects through SmythForge and, in our GitHub areas. Is there one that surprised you, or is there an agent that somebody's gotten close to, but that you'd love to see someone build, maybe in a hackathon, that we could help them with? So one, what are we going to do? How are we going to take them from hackathon to helping them see their idea to production? And then, Alexander, what's excited you so far, and what's some things you'd like to see someone build or come out of one of our hackathons?
Yeah, maybe Brian can start with answering the question on how we're going to help people get into hackathon and participate.
Yeah, so Amber, Alexander, one thing I'd like to say first is I truly believe this is like the most exciting time to be alive to start new businesses, because throughout my career I've started several of my own companies, but I've also helped dozens of others get started. And one of the things about starting a business that's hard is there's a lot of research involved in getting a business started, and there's a lot of prototyping. And with AI today, with generative AI, you can literally prototype a front end in an evening, and then over a period of a week or less, build the whole back end and have a working product. That's insane, because in the past, that would have been weeks of ideation and potentially up to a year of development to tie the front end to the back end. But now you can ideate in a couple hours, and then an evening, build out the front end, and then less than a week, you have the whole back end set up. So, but to answer your question about how we get started with the hackathon, we're going to make it super easy. We're working on a portal right now that you'll be able to just log into this portal and say, we would like to do a hackathon. Here's what we want to do. Here's how many participants we want in the hackathon. If it's part of a university, you can say, it's part of a university, and then we'll receive it. And then once we receive it, we'll do a review of the submission. We'll approve it. and then we'll give you a checklist of all the things you need to do. We'll make it super easy. It's very simple. Just check, check, check through the items that we present to you, and then you're literally off to the races. You can start the planning for your hackathon right away. And unlike the days in the past where you had these full auditoriums filled with people sitting at computers programming, weekends do that too, but a lot of these can be virtual. So you could literally submit your idea on our portal, have us approve it, give you the checklist, and right away you could start building out your hackathon virtually over a week or a couple days, and then send it back to us for our judging, and then that's it. I mean, I think having a hackathon nowadays is so much easier. I've done a lot of physical hackathons like Amber, and again, those were, sometimes months to plan. But now the way that we've built this, we've made it so easy for you just to come into our portal and submit your idea, and you're ready to go. Amber, you're muted.
That portal should probably be up in the next week to 10 days. But in the meantime, if you want to host a hackathon or participate in a hackathon or even sponsor a hackathon, you can just email us at hackathon@smythos.com, and Brian and I'll get it. And we'll do the manual piece until we get the kinks worked out of our portal. So there's multiple ways to do this. And so if you're an entrepreneur, we are gonna have a hackathon that's geared just for those entrepreneurial spirits and folks that have ideas and things. So if you're interested in that, please let us know that as well. Now, Alexander, we've had some really exciting agents that have been submitted to Smith Forged, and I know you're always thinking 10 steps ahead and have these exciting ideas. So what's been one or two of the most exciting ones you've seen, and what do you still wish that somebody would create out there using SmythOS?
Yeah, so first forged.smythos.com. That's what Amber's talking about. You can check out submissions for yourself, see what people have submitted. Also, if you join our Discord community, discord.gg/SmythOS, in there you will see a Forged channel, and every time somebody submits an app that they built with SmythOS, it will also post to Discord and you can discover it. There is a voting system where people can vote for their favorite products that were submitted, and then we're also issuing badges like our favorite winners every month, so get you extra recognition. There's a karma system, like point system, where you can get points for submitting apps, get points for getting upvotes from other people, and once you are in the Forged ecosystem, we're also wanting to help you be successful. And we do that with a number of ways. First, we have coupons for SmythOS there that will help you financially. We also have a deal portal, which is absolutely insane. There's over $3 million in giveaways. Someone from my team was looking at it and be like, oh, $1,000 for DigitalOcean, $10,000 for OVH for servers, a year of GitHub Enterprise for free. I mean, there is so much there, free ad credits, so much there in ways of free software that SmythOS is providing to all of our participants. It requires no money whatsoever. Like, it is a completely free deal. It's all for you, just for participating. And once you have completed your app, we want you to get attention for your app. So, we already talked about the upvote system, but our dev relation and marketing teams have worked on additional things. For example, we will give you a step-by-step guide on how to then post your application on Product Hunt and launch it to the world. Brian was talking about how it is easy to go from idea to prototype nowadays. One of the rules we have at SmythOS since the pivot is don't reinvent the wheel. if something already exists that I can build on top of, focus on my unique business value. Today you can do that with vibe coding tools like Bolt, Lovable, V0. There are numerous. And SmythOS can power your agent, your back end. And when you put the two together, it's very, very easy to create something magnificent in a short amount of time. One of the biggest problems with startup is that you launch too late. You wait too long to launch. Somebody said that if you're not embarrassed by your first release, you launched too late. And so what we're doing in these hackathons is we're helping you go from idea to launch and market fit testing in a super condensed window. And it incorporates some of the best lessons that you can have in entrepreneurship. Because we're not going to tell you, go and spend $20,000 in half year of your life to go and validate your idea. No, our hackathons are designed to help you do something in a day, in a week, in a month. And so it is a mindset. And we're encouraging this through hackathons with our community. But guess what? Inside of SmythOS as a company, we're also running hackathons. Every quarter, our entire company can participate in a SmythForge hackathon. And some of my favorite entries have come from our own team members. The other thing that was really exciting is how in 3 days' time, 600 people signed up for a hackathon in Bangladesh related to university. A lot of young entrepreneurs, young people who are trying to get something out in the world and just want to have a taste of what is possible. We're embodying that entrepreneurial spirit in our company, and we're sharing it with the world. We're giving you the tools and everything you need to succeed. One of my favorite internal projects has been a voice-enabled agent. SmythOS did not have a voice mode to talk to your agents, and somebody just added it in a hackathon, and it was glorious, and it works. Since then, several customers have come to us and said, I want a voice agent. And we said, well, funny you should ask. Somebody in the hackathon made just that. From the Bangladeshi hackathon, I was struck by how many entries were creating real good social causes. For example, helping farmers deal with droughts or funding so that there's more food security. And it makes you think about what kind of great impact this can have in the world. If there is a problem that has not been solved yet, it is just waiting for you to participate and go and test your theory in action.
You know, Alexander, you know, another thing that when you're speaking about this, I think is so interesting. For me, as an entrepreneur, one of the biggest lessons is getting the product out as quickly as possible. I mean, we always seek to have a perfect solution. You know, we find out what the challenge is, we come up with a resolution to that challenge, but then we overthink it. You know, you want to build that perfect toaster. You don't have to build the perfect toaster. You've got to build the functioning toaster, get it out to people, and let the people that are using your new solution or your new product be the ones that drive the product roadmap. And the biggest mistake that I see that entrepreneurs make time and time again is they work so hard to build a solution that they believe is the right solution. And at the end of the day, the right solution is going to be what your users believe is the right solution. It's not what you believe is the right solution. You're just kickstarting it. You're getting that idea out there, and you've got a sometimes very basic functioning application that can be developed upon. So, you know, a voice agent, for instance, you know, in a hackathon, a voice agent is probably fairly basic at first, but that is the start of a voice agent that we will greatly enhance over time, but by the feedback of the users. So I say, jump in and build something quickly, get it out, and let people play around with it and let them tell you.
Do you think that is the mindset that entrepreneurs in this agentic space needs to have, for the next generation? Do you think that's the mindset, or do you think they need a different mindset for this next generation of entrepreneurs?
Well, we're entering a stage of the market that can be described as hyper competitive,
Mm-hmm.
hyper capitalism,
Mm-hmm.
where, where the cycles of innovation and cycles of competitors increases exponentially. In 2019, we did a product hunt and we were a product of the day, and there were maybe 30 or 40 products launched that day. Now on the busiest day of the week, usually Tuesdays on product hunt, now you go to product hunt on a Friday and there will be 200-300 products launched that day. That would be like a 10x increase in a few years' time. Now imagine 100x increase. Because what Brian was talking about, the speed of which you can bring your ideas to market, guess what? Other people also have access to those tools. It is not just to be considered as an advantage. It should be considered table stakes.
Mm-hmm.
You are taking 2 years to rebuild SmythOS from scratch rather than launching your product. You have already been made redundant in the market because it moves so fast. That's why you have to launch quickly. But if you launch quickly and everybody launches quickly, you enter this hyper competitive sphere. And so this is why you get to, like the saying is, first time founders obsess about product, second time founders obsess about distribution.
Mm-hmm.
So distribution is really where it's at. At any point in time, when you launch something, there's probably 20 other companies who are launching something similar, had a similar idea, and launched quickly in that same week. And it's a cutthroat world out there, competitive, to try and get the attention and the eyeballs to actually grab the market share you need to matter. Because then investment capital flows to those who can get the attention, and the ones who have the capital then can solve all the other problems and all the refinements that they need to do. So this is why in SmythOS, we did not only think about how do we give you the tooling to build your agents and your startup idea quickly, but also how do we help you get off the ground and get running in distribution. This is why our giveaways include things like free ads on Google or LinkedIn or Reddit, and it also involves guide on how to launch on Product Hunt. But there's also a very vibrant community of marketers who are using SmythOS to build agents to help them market their product. And they think of growth hacks and ways to automate social media and SEO and all of those aspects of their business. So I would say if you are considering an idea before starting, consider your unique advantage or leverage point or angle by which you're going to achieve distribution. If you're young and handsome or beautiful, then, maybe that's like TikTok Reels and you have a likable personality and people just want to try out what you just launched. If you are in a university with a great network, maybe it's something that appeals to that audience and they can carry forward. Think of what Mark Zuckerberg achieved with schools. If he had not been in school, he would have missed that dynamic. So he was able to tap into that because he knew it, he was in it. And if you are already an established business owner, you'll have a network of trusted people, maybe partnerships, connections. Leverage what you have. Write it down. What kind of distribution leverage do I have? And then build, but launch like your life depends on it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an idea, see if you can launch it this afternoon. If you
Mm-hmm.
can't launch it this afternoon, see if you can launch it tomorrow. And then before you start building, make sure that the day after tomorrow, you know how you're going to make sure 100 people or 1,000 people see it, and we'll give you immediate feedback.
Another thing that's pretty amazing about right now is whatever your motivation is to start a business, this whole speed to launch. Not only is there, you can get an app out there quickly, but as far as iterating, the same thing goes. As you start getting feedback, you apply that feedback to iterate and build the product, make it bigger and bigger. And so when I say about motivation, this is interesting because whether your motivation is you want to change the world, you want to, cure hunger around the world, or you want to make a lot of money. I mean, both are very possible. I mean, I think it's interesting when I hear people like Sam Altman say that we are now entering a phase in business where there will be solo entrepreneurs that will make $1 billion. That's incredible. And then you look at companies like Midjourney. Midjourney became a $100 million business with less than 100 employees. And now they're approaching 500 million, I believe, in revenue. And now there's certainly more than 100 people, but nothing like the old days of a $500 million company that has thousands of employees. So not only can you do this quickly, you can do it with a small team. And as Sam Altman says, and I agree with them, maybe someday your lone idea, you'll become a billionaire just by yourself. It really is the speed to launch and the speed to iterate creates an incredible flywheel effect of what you're building and what you can get out there.
And the time has went by super quick on this one. Like it just felt like we started 5 minutes ago, and here we've had 40 minutes gone by very quickly. And so to echo what you both said today, we want to get you started, and we want to let you know that you can start quickly. And so how are you going to get started? Well, you're going to get started. We want you to go over to our GitHub repo. And again, these slides with the links will be shared on both our YouTube channel and those who got invited to that signed up and got invited by the calendar link. I'll be putting these in there. So I want you to go over to GitHub, go to SmythOS, look at our repos. If you like what you see, you want to help extend that future, start our repo, especially SRE and Studios, start those up. We want you to spin up your first agent on Smith Forge. Go sign in and get started in that. You need some tutorials, some information, you can check out SmythOS Academy and take the tutorials there. We want you to bookmark the docs for easy reference. As Alexander said, join us on Discord. I'll be sending out those links as well. And check out this recording today, and all our others that we've had before today are out there on our YouTube channel. Check out SmythOS on YouTube. Now, we do have our community meetings that are coming up next week. We had our first one at the beginning of October. We'll have our second community meeting on the 4th, so we want to see you there. There's a specific channel on YouTube. It's our community meeting channel, so join there. We'll be sharing all of those all of these links and more in that channel. As Brian said, we're going to be launching a portal for our hackathons. But in the meantime, email us at hackathon@smythos.com. And we'll be able to get you information that way as well. So multiple ways to get started today. We hope we'll see you in the community. We hope we'll see you in Discord. We'll see you in GitHub and around. We also have our LinkedIn channels, and we're on X. So please, wherever you want to connect with us, we want to meet you where you're at and get you started today. And again, Brian, thank you for showing up today. Alexander, thank you so much for your time today. And hopefully next week, we're actually going to be talking to the folks who put together the Bangladesh Hackathon with us. So if you want to know more about hackathon experiences and what's being created and how to start them, we will have organizers from the Bangladesh Hackathon with us next week here on Agents in Action. Thank you so much.